Going live here. This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com, and I'm live here with an update. First of all, before I get into the Wrestling Observer this week, they indicated in this week's Observer that it didn't look like Nate Diaz was going to fight at Madison Square Garden November 2nd. In that big baddest motherfucker title fight, but it appears that he's still going to be able to fight as the substance that was found in his system could have been just trace amounts of something that is found in supplements. It might not be enough to actually merit him being banned from fighting. So it appears as of 2:20 p.m. here on Friday, October 25th, that Nate Diaz is still going to fight George Masvidal in that Madison Square Garden fight, because if he couldn't, they would have a hard time finding a replacement. How are you doing, Michael Murray Jr.? Oh, my dog's barking. Hopefully she'll shut up. I'll start with the WWE news. Xavier Woods suffered a torn Achilles tendon on October the 21st in Sydney, Australia, which is a very serious injury, and it's likely going to keep him out of action for about 9 months to a year. Regarding NXT in 2020, there's talk going around they're going to continue to go to Full Sail University, but not every week. They are going to tour a bit. We have seen, like last weekend, they went to Portland, Oregon. They didn't get anywhere near AEW numbers that AEW is getting for attendance, but they did get over 2,000 people in Portland and Vancouver, which is interesting because the Raw show the same night as the NXT show in Vancouver, the Raw show in New Jersey only had 3,000, and the NXT show in Vancouver had about 2,500 the same night, which is pretty bad considering its developmental talent. The BBC in the UK, that big media outlet, reported Tyson Fury is getting 12 million for his fight, or his wrestling match next week against Braun Strowman. Apparently Fury's management isn't happy about him training to be a wrestler because it is a lot of wear and tear on the body. I don't know how serious his training is, but it is a lot of wear and tear on the body. So I don't know how that's going to affect him training for his next boxing match, but I think he still has a while before his next boxing match. Chris Hannon says, greetings from Washington State. Greetings to you, good sir. Randy Orton's 10-year WWE contract that he's currently under expires next year. And I'm not sure what month it is, but according to Meltzer, he's in a great position right now because right now he's getting around $3 million a year and doesn't work a full WWE road schedule. WWE is still probably a better place for him than AEW for money, but he is 39 and he could get an even lesser schedule in AEW potentially for around the same money or more, but it depends if they want to spend that type of money. They do need more stars, and Randy Orton would be a good star for them. There's been no update on if CM Punk is going to be on this FS1 show for WWE. It's already aired one episode, I believe. So nothing new. Punk did an interview saying he hasn't heard anything back. Cain Velasquez had said that WWE had given him permission to do one more AAA show. He was supposed to do the canceled show that was going to take place October 13th in LA. But WWE has put out an official response saying that the show that Cain was going to work outside WWE has been canceled. The Saturday UFC show in Boston, Dana White made a comment regarding Velasquez, saying he's happy for Cain, saying Cain has had some rough injuries. He's been a professional athlete for a long time, as well as a college athlete, and he's a super nice guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how those injuries affect his wrestling performance. He's done 2 AAA matches that, from what I understand, were heavily scripted. I understand that he does need knee surgery, but he's going to try stem cell therapy first to see how that works. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has been talking about doing this for a decade, but I guess he's going to start filming a movie where he plays the DC comic character Black Adams next July. The current market value that WWE is worth is $5.234 billion. So WWE is still worth a hell of a lot of money, considering UFC, I think, was bought for $3 or $4 billion. So WWE is still worth more than UFC. On to the AEW news. Anthony just commented the Young Bucks versus Private Party was full of botched spots. Chris Hanna says, do I think Seth Rollins should turn heel? Well, he's not getting over as a face from everything I've read, and he's tweeting out heelish comments and saying heelish comments publicly. So maybe they should turn him a heel. Jack Hager is fighting in Connecticut tonight for Bellator against Anthony Garrett. I guess Jack Hager or Jack Swagger, Jake Hager, is under a lot of pressure in this fight because he's likely going to be a wrestler after this. This likely could be his last MMA fight. He has signed a contract with AEW, so he's under a lot of pressure to win tonight. So far, his opponents have been very well selected. There hasn't been a lot of risks, and I've seen some of the fights of the guy he's fighting. He doesn't seem like he should be too much trouble, but we'll see. AEW has signed ring announcer Justin Roberts to a contract. This week's AEW Dynamite taping in Pittsburgh was the first non-sellout Dynamite taping. They did sell out the first 3 tapings. They had 6,000 fans in Pittsburgh in an arena where they could have sold 9,500 for wrestling. And also on that note, as I mentioned in my attendance report in a separate video yesterday, this week's Dynamite was the first Dynamite that didn't outdraw Raw. Raw outdrew Dynamite by 500 fans. So it is funny. Someone just brought up Seth Rollins. He keeps calling AEW minor league. They might be dropping in interest, but the fact of the matter is that they still outdrew Raw 3 weeks in a row, and they have been destroying NXT in ratings. That may not last forever, but at least for now, they did outdraw Raw. So you're basically saying a minor league company outdrew you. I agree that the talent on their TV show is overall less polished than WWE for sure, but they are getting paid a lot of money. So if they're not getting minor league pay, if they're getting real pay and they're on a major network, I wouldn't consider it minor league myself. Even though I'm not as everyone knows that watches me, I'm not a fan of AEW either. In New Japan news, according to Dave Meltzer, only about 1,700 tickets have been sold for the San Jose show coming up in a 2,500 seat venue, and that's for Liger's U.S. retirement match. And there's plenty of tickets remaining for the Monday night show at the Globe Theater in LA, which PWG usually sells out easily. It only holds about 600 people. They are starting this new U.S. company based in Southern California, headquarters in Carson, California, at their LA dojo. It's going to be under the New Japan umbrella. As far as drawing potential, New Japan has taken a hit this year. Competition from AEW, signing away a lot of their top stars. It's uncertain how well they're going to do. They're going to be putting on events in about 2,000 seat venues, but wrestling in the US isn't drawing that well in general. AEW and WWE are getting some decent crowds, but WWE is not really selling out anywhere. The last sellout I heard was the SmackDown with The Rock in LA. That was like the last real legitimate sellout. The Raw reunion show where they had Hogan in Tampa with Flair and Austin and all those guys back, I think, in August. They said it was a sellout, but it only had about 10,500 or so fans there. And I looked up the capacity of the building. It could hold more than that. And I heard from fans there were areas of the building tarped off and stuff. So WWE is not really even selling out big shows. So it's going to be interesting if New Japan can't sell out the Globe Theater in LA that easily and it only holds 600 people, how they think they're going to do once they start running more regularly. Nothing formal has been said about New Japan's relationship with Ring of Honor. Obviously, New Japan talent has not been on Ring of Honor shows for the last few months. The Global Wars tour featured only CMLL wrestlers, which doesn't have much drawing appeal in the US or in Canada for that matter. The only person I know from CMLL is Roosh, and that's only because I've been reading about him as Ring of Honor champion. Aside from Jeff Cobb, Meltzer says there's nobody from Ring of Honor who has been working in New Japan, and Cobb's relationship with New Japan predates him signing with Ring of Honor. Apparently, Cobb's contract is going to expire fairly soon. He's going to have lots of options for re-signing other than Ring of Honor. And I already mentioned PCO told me despite having a title match December 18th in Ring of Honor, his contract has not, he hasn't re-signed with them. His contract expires December 1st. I'll take a few of your questions now. Michael Murray Jr. says he's been watching more AEW than WWE. Explosive Phoenix says the women's division in AEW needs some big superstars. I'll agree with you there. Their champion is entertaining, but there is no superstars in the women's division, and Nyla Rose isn't getting over at all. They were putting a lot of steam behind her initially, but it seems like they're not pushing her as strong, even though I say her, but some people would argue it's actually a man dressed up as a woman. Dirty Funker Ray says, how is superstar Billy Graham's health? I haven't heard anything from him. My friend's been in contact with his wife, so we haven't heard anything new bad about him. We think he just wants to be left alone for a while. He's recovering from his heart attack. Chris Hannon says, I think the Hart Foundation is the best faction in wrestling right now. Too bad they're in MLW where they're not getting a lot of exposure. And as Harry Smith told me, and Ted Hart also told me, they're signed to MLW. So unless a special deal is worked out with MLW and AEW, they're going to be in MLW for a while. But Harry Smith, of course, he's the Hannibal TV heavyweight champion. He's going to be wrestling for Great North Wrestling, at least for the next event, because he's got to defend that title. Someone says, I think AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling need to get a partnership for talent exchange. Well, that would be good, but there's heat between those two companies stemming from AEW signing all of New Japan's top stars. They're not even using the Young Bucks. I don't believe they have Kenny Omega on any future dates at this point. They might use him for Wrestle Kingdom. But AEW is running the U.S. They don't want competition in the U.S. That's why they didn't let Dean Ambrose wrestle on that, I think, Dallas New Japan show this past summer. So don't expect any AEW and New Japan partnerships unless something drastic changes, because from all reports I've heard, including from AEW people themselves, there's not a good relationship there. Also in UFC news, for the next UFC light heavyweight champion challenger to John Jones's title, They should have a clear-cut runner, according to Melzer, after Dominic Reyes scored a fast victory over Chris Wheeldman in the main event at the UFC Boston card last week. But apparently that's not the fight Jones wants. Jones wants a big money fight, maybe against the winner of Cormier versus Miocic. The entire UFC Boston card aired on ESPN2. It had 805,000 viewers, while the prelims did 396,000 viewers. The $50,000 bonuses went to, excuse my pronunciation here, Yara Rodriguez and Jeremy Stevens for Fight of the Night, while Dominic Reyes and Charles Rosa won the bonuses for Performance of the Night. The show at TD Garden in Boston drew 12,066 fans with a $1,124,765 gate. It was the lowest attendance and gate UFC has done in Boston ever. And this is surprising because it's Dana White's hometown. He usually stacks the cards. Conor McGregor is being investigated for a second sexual assault, according to a story in the New York Times. Apparently, there was a complaint by a woman in her 20s that she was sexually assaulted in a vehicle parked outside a Dublin pub last week in Ireland. McGregor was not charged and police have not spoken to him. But McGregor was in court last week regarding the alleged assault he did on a man in his 50s, also at a Dublin pub. So he should really stay out of those pubs. He's getting into a lot of trouble at those pubs. Michael Bisping underwent knee replacement surgery on October 17th. The Junior Dos Santos versus Alexander Volkov main event, November 9th in Russia, is now out, with Dos Santos pulling out because of a serious bacterial infection in his leg. Greg Hardy is now going to face Volkov. That's it for the UFC news. Jimmy Uso was arrested for DUI. Anthony says, well, yeah, that's why he's not on WWE TV. And apparently Jeff Hardy was pulled from a recent WWE appearance because of his latest DUI. There's still no word on what WWE is going to do about Jeff Hardy. I don't know if he's recovered from his injury or not, but right now they're not using him. He's been getting into a lot of trouble lately. No word on what they're going to do with the Usos either. We know Jimmy Usos was denied access to Canada SummerSlam weekend, but we also know that WWE has got guys like Jeff Hardy into Canada with worse criminal records than Jimmy Uso in the past, so they can pull strings to get people into Canada. So maybe that issue is one of the issues on why they're not putting the Usos back on TV right now. So that's the Wrestling Observer review. I'll check back in with you guys tonight, probably after I find out the finish of the Jack Swagger match. And tomorrow I have an interview with Justin Credible in Messina, New York. Looking forward to that.